It seemed as though hell had come to the Bloodwood. Ilari and his pathfinders had been keeping an eye on one of the Saurian portals at the border of the wood, when it opened and the Saurians poured out like the wrath of an angry god. Not only had they completely overpowered the pathfinders, but much to Ilari's anguish, they began to burn the forest as they went. Ilari realized that there was more at risk than the lives of his pathfinders, and so fled the battle, praying that he could outrun the fire and the Saurians to reach the main camp and warn them of what was coming. It was only the fact that the Saurians were more focused on their burning than him that allowed Ilari to escape. As he ran, he could hear the pained screams of the forest surrounding him, and he realized that this was not just another border skirmish. The Saurians had come to destroy the forest, and he did not know what it would take to stop them. All right, so we have a big one tonight. The Saurian Ancients, played by yours truly, up against Skip's Sylvan Elves. This is a 4,000 point hold the ground scenario. So we have to get scoring units in the center of the table by the end to score the extra points. Pretty straightforward. Only thing that might look different, my red maw pit there, we are treating as a piece of water terrain that also gives light cover due to the rock pillars. But other than that, all the other terrain is pretty normal. So let's go ahead and get into deployment, starting with the Sylvan Elves. Okay, so starting on the left here, we have a unit of 5 Heath Riders. Then, you can't really see him, but in the back of that forest, hiding behind the tall tree there, is a single model that is a Forest Prince. He has the Shapeshifter Kindred and an Ogre Sword and the Armor of Destiny. So the ultimate plan, according to Skip, is that he was going to try and hunt some of my monsters. Next to that is a unit of 10 Sylvan Archers with a Musician. Then there is a unit of 6 Thicket Beasts with a Champion. Next to that is a unit of Dryads. There are 16 there with a Champion. And up in the front left corner, as you look at this picture, is a Dryad Matriarch with a Wizard Apprentice with 2 spells from Druidism and the Sacred Bark. Next to that is another unit of 10 Archers with a Musician. And behind that is a unit of 20 Forest Rangers with full command. And with them is a Chieftain BSB with the Sacred Spear of Cateron and the Dragon Scale Helm. And then holding down the far flank is a unit of 5 Briar Maidens with the Champion upgrade to get the spells. So my deployment is going to start off with a Stygiosaur. Then I have a unit of 20 Temple Guard with full command. In the Temple Guard is Sekaloth, the Coatl Lord. He is my general and battle standard bearer. Master Wizard with 4 spells to the Path of Pyromancy. And I ended up getting the first 4 in the lore. He also has a Dragonfire gem and the Wellspring of Power upgrade. Behind that is a Tyroscutus with the Sun Engine. Then a unit of 20 Saurian Warriors with full command, spears, shield, and the Serpent Warriors upgrade. Then there is a Taurosaur with the giant blowpipes. Next to that is a Firstborn Veteran on a Carnosaur with the Spear of the Stampede, Lucky Shield, and Talisman of Shielding. Then a unit of 20 Saurian Warriors with full command, hand weapon, shields, and the Serpent Warriors upgrade. And then on the far end is a single Salamander. And then over here, Skip scouted up a unit of 8 Pathfinders with no additional upgrades, I don't think. And he ended up being in such a rush, wanted first turn, that he ended up dropping his entire army, so he will go first. So we go into Sylvan Elves turn 1, and he decides to start pushing up with the Briar Maidens. He wants to get close enough to start throwing some spells, particularly to take out that Salamander, because he knows what horrible things that can do to any of his ranked infantry. And then he starts pushing up on the left side as well. We kind of both know that we've got to head for the middle, so I don't think anyone is, or at least he's not at this point, super interested in pushing up there immediately. You also notice he moves up his shapeshifter hunter up behind another tree. He's going to start trying to just take some longbow shots until I get closer, I guess, and he can try and come hunting for me. I stop his magic for the phase. On his shooting, he ends up having the Pathfinders use the Armor Pierce 3 arrows, and they open fire on the Stygiosaur and inflict 2 wounds. Then Saurian Ancients turn 1, and I'm sorry I forgot to take a picture of movement, but all I did is I marched forward with everything I had. So I'm the same battle line, just 8 inches or so in front of where it was. But what I'm showing you now is magic for Saurian Ancients turn 1. And the first thing I did was pop a 2d6 Pyroclastic Flow at his general. He couldn't stop me. I rolled high enough that I got it off. I popped 7 hits. I wounded on 4 of them. And with a 5-up armor, 4-up ward save, he failed all 3, and I killed his general. Bottom of turn 1. So that was not good for my opponent. He got kind of pissed off at this point. And I definitely think it affected the way he played the rest of the game, because he was kind of expecting that to be able to do something, though I still don't think it was necessarily the best plan. Getting rid of his general turn 1 hurts. And more so because once it was dead, both of the units that were within 6 inches of him panicked. And so they had to run from the nearest unit. So the nearest unit to the archers was my temple guard that was almost directly in front of them. So he rolls 12 inches to run them backwards and straight off the board. And then his horses were a little closer to the Stygiosaur, so they run off in this direction. But yeah, like that one magic spell basically collapsed his whole left flank. So yeah, that could have gone way, way better for him. Over here, I had moved up and used my shooting to breathe the strength 3 toxic attacks on the Pathfinders, but I only managed to do 2 wounds, so only 2 of them died. Sylvan Elves turn 2 starts with no charges and the horseman here rallying. He moves over his Briar Maidens over to the side so that he can start doing bad things to my Salamander. And he pushes up forward. And this is where I say my opponent's mindset for his general getting blown off the board is really messing with him. Because he pretty much pushed up evenly, which means I get to pick which of these units I'm going to charge into. And it's no real contest. I'm going to send everything I've got into the Dryads, because I can kill them. I'm not entirely sure I can kill the thicket tree guys. Oh, excuse me. So if he was thinking more clearly, it's entirely possible he would have held them back a little bit. And I would not have been able to pick as easily, but it is kind of what it is here. Between shooting, I think I stop his magic from getting the Salamander, but then his shooting, I think, finishes him off, or a combination of the two, but Salamander dies. Over here, he shoots again, but only gets one more wound on the Stygiosaur. And then I go. So I charge both my Carnosaur and the Taurosaur into the Dryads, because that's going to hurt. And actually, yeah, the spell he's got up on him, he got Oaken thrown up last turn, but I let it go, and I stopped all his other magic, so that's all that matters. Then I move up the Spearman so that if he does hold me by some miracle, he can't get in with his Thicket creatures, and everything else just advances, as you see. I also did charge the Stygiosaur into the Pathfinders, and they stood because they were going to flee. So, in my magic phase, I pop Cascading Fire in a 6-inch aura, thinking that maybe it might hold the tree, or the Thicket beasts back, or the Thicket creatures back from charging into the Spearman. But it's really all I got that was worthwhile. Over here, my Stygiosaur fluffs like crazy. I only end up killing one of the Pathfinders with it. But it is enough because Skip's dice aren't working great right now, so he breaks and runs. I choose to restrain. He runs 3 inches, and I decide not to reform because he didn't run off the board. So that's pretty much why we look like that. Over here, yeah, my guys just absolutely tear these Dryads up. He only gets 1 wound through on the Taurosaur for the whole unit. I stomp him. I may have killed him to a man. Or maybe not. He might have broken. Either way, if he broke, it was an auto break. And the Carnosaur, because it has Frenzy, has to overrun. And I end up... I'm thinking I'm okay because he's still kind of blocking himself up with those units. But I'm still kind of out there with no support. The Taurosaur turns to face the flank of the Thicket creatures. Then he goes. He decides, you know what? Screw it. Throws the Thicket beasts into the front of my Spearman. You can also see over on the right side, he charged his archers at my Saurus warriors with the hand weapon shield, which freed him up to be able to charge his rangers into the flank of my Carnosaur. That's not good. And yeah, here's just a better picture of that. The archers are toast, but so is my Carnosaur most likely. My only hope is he's got a BSB in there. I'll challenge him, and maybe I'll get lucky. Or maybe he'll refuse the challenge and won't get to use the BSB for a little bit. I don't know. Over here, he fails to rally the Pathfinders, and they run off the board. And then he brings up his Horse Riders here to block up my Temple Guard so they can't get in on the fight against the tree, or the Thicket creatures. And he brings his Briar Maidens around back. He's going to try and throw some spells at the Tyroscutus with no real effect. So over here is the first fight we do, and I challenge his BSB runs to the back, and he opens up, but doesn't do all that great. He ends up only getting 3 wounds across. I take out basically the whole back rank. I win. I think either I win or we tie here and no one has to make a break check. Unfortunately, because he hit me in the flank, I can't turn to face because it would remove models from combat. So I'm kind of stuck here, and I still don't have any way to bring any help into that unit next turn. Over here, I didn't do nearly as well as I thought I was going to do. He did kill 1 of the Saurus warriors, but I only killed 5 of the Elves, which I feel like with 3 ranks fighting, I should have done more than that. The one hanging out by himself breaks and runs off into the forest. And over here, he kills 4 of, I think it's 4 of my spear warriors. I kill one of his thicket creatures. So I think we're a tie, or yeah, I think we're either a tie or he loses by one. I don't recall which. But either way, nobody's going anywhere. So we go into my turn 3. The Taurosaur charges into the flank of the thicket creatures. My hand weapon and shield Sauruses charge into the flank of his rangers. My temple guard charge into the front of his light cav. And I bring the Stygiosaur around so I'll be able to roar and get the effect on the 2 Saurus units here. So surprisingly enough, I do kill the 3 freaking cab, but he ends up killing 2 temple guard before I can do it. So that's just what it is. I turn to face the flank of the thicket creatures, and bad things happen. I just do a ridiculous number of impact hits. Most of them hit. I don't kill him all up front. Actually, he goes first. So yeah, he kills a lot of me. I end up beating him by a few. I think he was needing to roll a 5 or a 6, and he fails it. And my spearmen run him down. And then over here, he does manage to kill off the Carnosaur because I challenged again, and he accepted with the BSB. So the BSB kills the Carnosaur, which made the unit distracting. But he only managed to kill 1 Saurus warrior. I killed 1 or 2 more. It might have been 1 or 2 more of the Rangers, but with static combat res, me catching him in the side, he breaks. He does escape, but at this point, my opponent kind of feels that it's not really worth keeping going, and it's getting late, so he does choose to surrender. Darlorn watched as his forest burned. Screams came from those who were not fast enough to make it out of the ancient's way. Treemen burned, but continued to try to stop the slaughter, giving time for the elves to escape. He had thought all was lost, but then the trees began to sing. The song, almost non-existent at first, kept building and building. It moved from tree to tree, dryad to dryad, until the remaining druids picked it up as well. Then the forest itself began to move, and move quickly. The louder the singing, the faster the movement, leaving the majority of the forest behind, a sacrifice to allow the elves and their companions to escape the wrath of the Quaddle and his minions. Fiery death came to the Bloodwood on this eve, but hope was born from the ashes upon the rise of the sun. Darlorn wept at the loss of his friends and his home, but from that loss he vowed revenge, and swore to seek out help from the Quaddle's other enemies, for he must be stopped, no matter the cost. All right, so yeah, another big win for the Saurian Ancients, and yeah, this one was rough. I really do have to blame it, though. I think first step, I think the choice to use the Shapeshifter Kindred on his general was just bad. Even if he had come in doing what he wanted to do and managed to reach it, reach the monsters, I don't see how he expected that one figure to be able to handle my monsters, quite frankly. I mean, he was swinging with 5 attacks. Yeah, he was needing to hit on 2s, but he's only wounding on 4s against the actual monster. And if he didn't get the kill, I would thunderstomp him to death. So, all in all, I don't really know what the Sylvan Elf answer to monsters is. it seems like though it is not the shapeshifter. And I think my opponent kind of put too much focus on that, so that when it died so early, it really just absolutely wrecked his game plan. And he made some bad choices because he didn't really have a second plan in place. So he was kind of flailing, and I was able to pretty easily take advantage of that. But yeah, I like monsters. The Saurians are in a good place for me right now. I'm really happy to have that second block of Saurus with the hand weapon and shield, so I don't have to field a bunch of skinks, because I don't really like them. A couple in the special category for shooting sometimes is nice, but I actually like the idea of being able to field these two or three blocks of troops backed by monsters and dinosaurs. So I'm pretty happy there. Number 2, I think I faked my opponent out, as I've been playing without magic for so long. And then in this game, I think I've gone 3 weeks for us with no magic in any of my lists, no matter what army I was playing. And then out of nowhere, I drop a Slan with 4 spells to pyromancy and a bunch of bonuses. So I don't think he was expecting that offensive type of fire, and it worked, because it let me snipe his general. But all in all, it was a good game. Definitely in terms of the narrative, the Saurians are in a very strong point. They have pretty much burned the Bloodwood to the ground. What little of the forest was tree sung away, and the elves now are in desperate need for allies, and it looks like they are going to turn to, well, frankly, just about anybody who is willing to pick up sword against the Saurians. So I'll be interested to see where that goes, and kind of where the story kind of proceeds from here. One last note before we end it up. I mentioned this on the last battle report. I will mention it again. I have started a Patreon for the channel. If you would like to go, I'll put the link down in the description, or you can search Patreon for Materum and just find it there. There are some rewards for donating that would let you put characters into our narrative, or force me to play with a list of your devising in a special battle report made specially for you. Stuff like that. So if anybody would like to donate, it would certainly be appreciated. My plan is this year to try and get to more tournaments, so some of that money would go to tournaments. I'm also considering starting a new army, so if I can get a good positive response from Patreon, that would make that project happen sooner or later. And anybody who really wants to put in some money there, I've actually opened one of the donation rewards as you get to pick what army I start next. From 3, either Orcs and Goblins, Vermin Swarm, or Infernal Dwarves. Those are the 3 I'm considering. So anybody wants to hit that particular big prize, they'll be more than happy to pick my army. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will catch you on the next video.